When seeing this documentary from beginning to end, my mood was from average to flatlining to all the way down to the ground. I didn't know that this documentary would give me such a sucker punch in the middle of the movie and following with a knockout jab towards the end. While writing this script, I'm still trying to describe what I just watched. Don't get me wrong here, this film wasn't badly made or was showing gruesome stuff like gore or violence. It was more of an emotional impact, and throughout of watching the documentary, I kept asking why all the time, which I'll get into that in a bit, but let's first introduce the movie of today. The Overnighters is a film about Pastor Jay Reinke opening his doors to his church and his house to migrants who travel miles away from their homes to find work in the oil fields of North Dakota. Ah yes, North Dakota.
Attention students! Wonderful news! North and South Dakota have finally settled all the differences and have agreed to become one big Dakota! Woohoo!
A state that borders Montana, South Dakota, Minnesota, and our neighbors from the north, Canada, and home to many Indian tribes like the Blackfoot, Cheyenne, Chippewa, and Mandan. North Dakota is also known by the film Fargo about snow and murder and Steve Buscemi. To be honest, I haven't watched this film and will do if it tickles me fancy, but hey, there's a show about the movie too, and if you guess correctly, I didn't watch that either. Beside the movie and Native American heritage, the state also has an abundant amount of oil stored in their land, and yes, if you're an environmentalist or seen the segment on Last Week Tonight with current year-man John Oliver, then you've probably seen news reports about how the pipeline will fuck up the environment to evict Native Americans from their land so the pipes can go through, or extracting oils from the reservation. Despite the backlash from the media and the environmentalist groups, people are still flocking to the states to earn their daily bread. Throughout the film, Pastor Reinke has to deal with the media, the townspeople of Williston, people who want to blackmail him and himself. Not only we see the struggle of Pastor Reinke and his family were going through, but also the few migrants that were trying their luck in said town, like Keegan Edwards, a young Wisconsin man who wanted to provide to his newborn son, or like Michael Batten, an electrician journeyman from Georgia who left his family behind so he can keep his house. So yeah, if you can guess, the style of this film was of following these people in their day-to-day tasks from their job places to their temporary homes. While the church opened the doors to poor and hungry souls, it also got a bad rep because first off, the town wasn't used to having an abundant amount of people living in it, and the second reason was the past history of the migrants going into the town. While the church did ran background checks to each person that requested to stay in, it didn't prevent the former convicts to run amok in the town of Williston, from a murder of a high school math teacher to being a registered sex offender. With those bad actions, it led the program that the pastor was hosting earning a negative reputation and an outrage among the community. While Pastor Reinke was dealing with the city council and the city of Williston, the two men mentioned before were also struggling as well with their new jobs and how hard it was that their family weren't with them. To make matters worse, there were two people that the pastor helped out but in the end betrayed him, and those were Keith Graves and Paul Engel. Engel is from New York who moved to the town of Williston to work and stay in the church for a while before he got booted out due to arguing with the pastor. Now Graves is a different story. Graves is a trucker from California that stayed in the pastor home alongside Engel, but due to the feud between Engel and the pastor, the New Yorker did some snooping around and discovered that Graves was a sex offender, which led to the blackmailing. Graves told the pastor about his past, somewhat, and the whole mess was starting to get bigger because this was the fuel that kept the scandal fire growing and growing, and with the program being looked down upon, the pastor had his back against the wall. With minimal cooperation with Graves, the constant harassment from the local media, the churchgoers complained about the odor and the workers not respecting the house of God, to the townsfolk not trusting the pastor, Jay Reinke was losing himself little by little. The man was losing his patience, but still kept his head up high despite the obstacles in his path. But just like a flame on the candle, that hope burned out fast. Reinke got a letter from the city demanding him to shut down the program due to the church being unsafe. Just like the pastor, our two workers from Georgia and Wisconsin also faced the same note. Baden left the town due to his family being torn apart, and Edwards was homesick that on one night, while traveling back to his home, he got into a car accident in the factory C7. Don't worry, he's still alive. Both Grave and Engel were never heard from again, and the pastor resigned from his position due to having same-sex ideas which didn't sit well with the higher-ups. Despite the effort effort and sacrifice that Reinke and the rest had to go through, in the end it only went up in smokes. How one man was helping the ones that needed help only to be backstabbed and humiliated by the rest. The positive about this film was how it was told. This film wasn't about oil being the bad guy, or how immigrants were taking jobs from Americans, or how Native Americans were rebelling against the oil corporation and the government to protect their lands. This film was about struggle and failure, how dreams can become nightmares, and hope being your enemy. Sure, this sounds dark and gloomy, but the impact that the film left was a positive, and not everything has to have a happy ending, and for that, it got a positive mark. The other positive was how this movie wasn't biased towards any political parties. Sure, it was released in 2014 during the second term of Obama, but it wasn't a film that favored or tainted his presidency. Sure, some people might try to convince that this movie is the main reason why the Democrat Party is to blame for, but from what I saw from this film, the director didn't have an agenda that you want to plug in. The negatives I found in this film was an audio hiccup. Sure, nitpicking here, but when I first viewed it on my TV, I didn't really notice it. But when viewing it from the second time on my computer using my headphones, I did notice the scene where the workers were helping out in the church with the parade and there was a cut in the audio. Not sure if my copy was fucked or the editor missed that small bit, but that small error didn't affect the movie whatsoever. The other negative was not a single interview with the townspeople. We only see either the pastor, the migrants, or the people who are against the pastor, but we never seen a regular citizen voicing opinions on this topic. Overall, The Overnighters was a program that Pastor Jay Reinke ran for 2 years, helping out poor souls only to get backlash and disbanded. The struggle that the pastor was going through and the migrants made this film have a dark tone from beginning to end. The film has a perfect balance of footages of both pastor and migrants being shown throughout the documentary, and it didn't feel like one group was getting all the attention whatsoever. Would I recommend this film? Yes, absolutely. This is one of the few films that made me cry or even made me want to go to North Dakota to be part of the 21st century Black Gold Rush. And this film is a few that I watched that struck my emotional chords, and for that it gets 2 thumbs up. Overall, if you want to see people teaching you how to fish birds, pissed off lady telling you to get off her property, or a pesky reporter that you want to push him off in front of traffic, then this film is for you. Until then, we meet again.
Thank you.